All right. Hi, everyone. Hi, Earl. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well also. Thank you. I'm really excited to have you as our guest spot for our February fireside chat. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
Good. How are you today? How's everything going by you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's cold, snowy, and sleeting here, but other than that, I'm in good shape.
Tell me a little bit about where are you? You're in
I'm right at the bottom of the Texas Panhandle, where the Texas turns to go up and the Red River comes across behind Oklahoma, below Oklahoma. My ranch is right there in that corner.
excellent. And have you always been there? Where did you grow up? Tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
I grew up on a ranch there on the Prairie Dog Town fork of the Red River. My family came there in the 1880s. My grandmother came there in a covered wagon from East Texas, settled on what was called Buck Creek because Indian lore said there was always fresh water in Buck Creek. And they were there before the windmills and the wells that could lift the water. So they had to have a supply of fresh water. So they settled on Buck Creek.
Wow. And so it's, no surprise that you connected with DSP.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
That's great. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got into writing?
I did a lot of reading when I was young. We didn't have a television until 1959. I know a lot of people find that unusual, but I was 6 years old. But I
Wow.
learned to read with my grandfather when I was four. And I've always been a voracious reader, so I read to entertain myself. Even after we had a television, we only had limited access certain hours of the day to certain stations. One out of Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma, and one out of Wichita Falls, Texas. So I've always read a whole lot. And because I read, I fancied myself a writer. I used to write poems to my teachers and my mom.
Oh, that's so sweet.
My mom made me read them aloud to her, which was interesting, but she enjoyed it. So in my mind, I think it's a curse. I think all the time. So when I'm thinking, I'm writing in my mind. I think it was Hemingway that said you think 10 times the length of time that you for what you write or what you write about.
Yeah.
So I've always written. I just got into publishing later in life. Anything that I'd written, most of it was for family, friends.
So you started out for fun.
I did for recreation purely. Yes, ma'am.
Nice. And I mean, clearly you're busy. Tell me a little bit about your career. So writings you kind of do on the side, right?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a practicing attorney. Been that way for 43 years. Small town attorneys, we're not like the tall tower big city attorneys. We have to represent people. And grandma sends grandson to you just because you did grandma's will. She thinks you can represent his DWI. So we represent people. I've done a whole lot of trial work here lately. I'm doing more because the courts are trying to catch up after the COVID shutdown.
Yeah.
Uh, we've tried some serious cases, murder cases, and other things.
Wow.
So we have a general civil criminal practice here in the small town. Childers is total county population is 7,400, which includes 1,700 of the inmates at the Roach unit out there.
Wow. So that keeps you busy.
Yes, ma'am. We're busy. We stay busy.
I'm sure I can imagine how, the experiences you have in your career, um, how they help in your writing. Do you ever take any real, cases that you've had or people that you meet to inspire your characters or situations?
Yes, ma'am. I wrote one. I think all lawyers write a book about trials. We all want to be
Comes with the,
John Grissom.
comes with the territory.
I found the John Grissom of Childers County. The difference between me and him is I've sold 121 books and he sold 121 million books. So big difference. But I wrote what's called The Last Orphan Maker, which is basically a trial and about characters in a particularly brutal case that I tried out of Collinsworth County, the county north of us. But changed the name, changed some of the facts, added some characters. I'm fascinated with World War II and World War II history. My father served in World War II. He was unusual in that he'd graduated an engineer degree from Tech, and because of that, he got to be an officer, and he got to meet Patton, Eisenhower, Churchill, the whole group, because he was the intelligence officer for his battalion.
That's
I heard a
amazing.
lot of stories growing up from him about that.
So, have you ever written anything historical? Do you research for your books?
I do research for my book. My first book, The Escudero, is my brother had crushed his foot in 1986 working on a ranch up there, and I went up there to help him and went to the Panhandle Plains Museum, and I got studying about Charles Goodnight. He wrote Cutting for Sign. Um, a lot of writers have used him. Deets, and that show is based on Bose Ickert, a live character out of Goodnight that was one of the black cowboys that rode with Goodnight when they first did their trail drives into the Palo Canyon up there in North Texas. So I based it on historical research, but I did not footnote it. It's not historic history in the sense of being historically totally accurate. It's still a lot of fiction, a lot of my imagination in it.
Yeah, I think I feel like if you have to make it so historically accurate, it might take from the joy of, the
It
joy of
takes the
writing.
joy of writing it right. And the
Exactly.
experience when you write a large book like I did, it's the difference you experience a whole lot of in your mind. You try to experience or do experience what your characters experience.
Yeah,
I've
you
always
kind of immerse yourself, right, in the story and you
I
invest in
do
the characters.
because to write it, yes, ma'am. When I grew up at the end, there were still some of the old time cowboys around. We still used horses. We still work the cattle the way they had been. We were before the four wheelers and helicopters and all that still in the late 50s, early 60s when I was old enough to ride a horse and work. So it was fascinating to me to understand how they could do that. I mean, to
Absolutely.
leave and go 1,300 miles over 90 days with no communication whatsoever, driving 1,000 head of cattle, 10 or 12 cowboys. It's pretty amazing what
Yeah,
they could do.
really amazing. So, would you say that the Western genre is your favorite to write? Because it seems like, you have different things that you've dabbled in, with your the book about the case you were telling me about. What's your favorite?
Would be Western, and then mainly because of the Western characters. They were sort of the last, we glorify them with John Wayne. I love John Wayne, but we glorify them with that. But they were truly independent because they had to be. I mean, they had to be blacksmith, veterinarian, doctor. They were alone. They had to make it work and do what they needed to do to survive, and that really impressed me and still impresses me that someone could go out on a horse by himself uh, across the Texas Panhandle before there were any roads or anything. The only thing they had to navigate by, some of them could navigate by the stars.
Yeah.
Uh, my dad could have taught me a little of that. Um, but the characters and the circumstances, they would be out in a blizzard like today by themselves horseback traveling.
Wow, it's fascinating.
It is. So I think the characters make it most fascinating. And plus, I love westerns. Lonesome Dove, the old Horseman Passed By, which was the last picture show, was a western, modern western. So because most of them deal with either the existence or the going away of the independent person, the loner.
Yeah. Wow. So you said you read a lot, right? You didn't have a television. So what was your favorite book to read? Do you have a favorite author?
I, as a child, my mom had me read what I call the classics: Melville, all the Mark Twain, uh, all those. Favorite old author, I'm pretty old fashioned. I like Hemingway. I like he did Killers of the Moon. I think his name's Grand, Robert Grand. He wrote White Darkness, and his are based on history, but they're still a story. He tells a story, and I like storytelling. I've always enjoyed storytelling. A lot of the judges said I'm a pretty good storyteller when I get to final argument. I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But,
Well, you're
so
very successful, so it's, I think it is a compliment.
I think the lady authors, the women are they're taking it over and they're good. I admire a whole lot of them because they not only raise families, they're professionals, and then they write too. Uh,
Yeah.
pretty
No, they're
pretty impressive.
for sure. So what are you working on anything currently?
I am. I'm writing a sequel to my first book, The Escadera. The sequel's called Katty, Katty. She was the little girl in the Escadera that grew up on the ranch with just the two men and became the owner of the ranch. So it brings it forward from about 1899 to about 1955 and how
Wow.
it changed and what happened and how the state took a whole lot of it because the ranch actually existed where the Palo Canyon is. So the state took a lot of it for the state park. And her resistance to that, and then her son was a Texas Ranger that served both in World War One and World War Two, and how he bumped up against a lot of famous people. Uh, Patton, MacArthur, Pershing,
Yeah.
a whole lot of them because of his military service. And the theme of it is she was what we would call a violent person. She took things into her own hands. Her daughter was abused by
Yeah.
a local sheriff, and she shot him, laid
Listen,
in ambush, and ambushed him. So that's part of the theory of the book. So she's
yeah.
an unusual character, an unusual lady, and some of that's based on my grandmother, who was different, of a different sort. Born, she was 5 years old when they came in 1888. And
Wow. I
she
love that. I mean, listen, you had to be strong back then, to survive.
And I think we're going to have to be strong again. The way things are shaking out, we're going to be tested again. My
Yeah.
father's generation was, and I'm afraid this generation,
Yeah.
below us, will be too. And
Well,
that's what writing is
I'm
about.
I'm really looking forward for when the sequel comes out. It sounds really interesting, so I'm excited to pick that up.
I appreciate it. The one thing a writer needs is readers.
Absolutely. Earl, thank you so much. I know how busy you are. Thank you for meeting with me and, telling our readers a little bit more about you. I think our Western authors are just so amazing in the different things that they've accomplished. And I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me today.
Thank you for having me and visiting
Absolutely.
with me.
I'm excited
Always
to do
nice,
it again.
always nice to visit with a pretty lady.
Oh, thank you, Earl. I'll see you soon and I'll be sure we'll get back with you when the sequel comes out.
Thank you.
Okay, you have a great day.
You too. Be careful.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.